Okay, good morning. So today our lesson will be again about sinusoidal functions. But before we do transformations for sinusoidal functions, we have to know the terms and definitions of some concepts. So the first thing we will see is amplitude. Amplitude is a distance amplitude. Amplitude is a distance from any maximum or minimum point to the x-axis, to the axis. Okay, so amplitude, whenever we say amplitude, if I have, this is my axis here, this is amplitude, this distance here is called amplitude. Amplitude is always absolute value of A, which we say it's always positive. If I have y equal to A sine x, or y equal to whatever it is minus 5 cos x, then amplitude is always absolute value of A. Amplitude is always absolute value of negative 5, which is 5. So to find amplitude, we have a formula which is amplitude is equal to maximum minus minimum divided by 2. Maximum minus minimum divided by 2. That's my amplitude. So to find the amplitude, if I have a graph, I find the maximum, I find the minimum, subtract them, divide them by 2. Okay, so vertical displacement. Vertical displacement is when I have an equation y equal to sine x plus c. C is the vertical displacement, or we say c is, or y equal to c is called equation of axis, the new axis. For the transformation, y equal to c will be the equation of axis. Instead of the x-axis, the equation becomes y equal to c, and that will be the middle of the graph. So to find vertical displacement c, which is always equal to maximum plus minimum divided by 2. This is always y equal to c, and c equal to maximum plus minimum divided by 2. Okay, so that is, to make it very clear, if this is my axis here and this is my graph, this is always c, the distance from the middle to the x-axis. That's my c. Okay, phase shift. Phase shift is the distance the graph has, the distance the graph translated horizontally. So phase shift is always the value of x. So phase shift is always whatever makes, if I have sine of x minus d, d is my phase shift. Whatever makes this equal to 0. For example, y equal to sine of x plus 20 degrees, my phase shift is negative 20 degrees, whatever makes the bracket equal to 0. So the phase shift is always d, because we can write d as this is x minus 20, and that's my d. X minus, always this is d is equal to minus 20. Okay, the period. To find the period, we have always a letter K. If I have A is sine of kx. K is always a number. So the period is 360 divided by K. Or if it is in radians, 2 pi divided by K. So the period is in how many parts the normal cycle is divided to. So let's say y equal to a sine of 3x. The period will be 360 divided by 3, which means for every cycle there is 120 degrees. The 360 becomes 3 cycles. So in the period is like horizontal compression or expansion. If this number is more than 1, it is compression. So it compresses the period to smaller degrees, 120 degrees. Okay, so the last one will be reflection on x-axis. Reflection on x-axis means when y is negative. When y is negative, the graph becomes, instead of, if this was my graph, so y equal to minus sine x. That means y is negative. The graph becomes reflected on x-axis. This is the negative one. Okay, so these are all the terms we have. So we'll continue with transformation.